This should be the second video in the income statement section of the BK Demo Data Guide. And in the prior video, we covered some of my favorite topics, which were Database Theory 101, Income Statement Basics for W-2 employees, and Income Statement Basics for small business owners, which is easy. But then we got into the alternate reports for business owners, which makes them, which in our system just makes it a lot easier to keep a finger on what's going on in your business. So now what we're going to do is expand out a little bit on that income statement report. So we went over the income statement report. You're getting tired of seeing all this now. By the way, this column can be hidden. That's that magic column that allows me to do this reporting really easy. Basically, when I pull the accounts here, I pull the account type here, and then I can do all kinds of reporting over here off of this hidden account type column. But that's like the one magician's secret here we got. Now, the drill down reporting. Unfortunately, in a spreadsheet, I did not have the ability in a web-based database system. You would be able to just click on 128. You want to look and see what that is. You'd click on it, the screen would flash, and it'd take you to another report. Or maybe this day and age, they'd have a pop-up window come up in front of it and show you your report, and you can go back down. I don't have that ability to do that in a spreadsheet, at least not yet, that I could figure out easily. But what I did have the ability to do is add a reporting system to the right. So you can just come over here and pick the category you want to drill down into. Let's call it commissions and fees. I can click that cell, type commissions and fees, and poof, I get my sub-report. Now, there is a way I could have set this up to where there was a link here and you could click a link and the link would update the value in this dropdown and then get this report automatically. So I guess in that regard, I could do it. It was going to require the scripting module. And what I did not want to do is put core functionality in the scripting module. So the only core functionality that's here, that's in the scripting module right now, is the nav1 lookup. And if that were to break or you didn't want to use the scripting module, you could update the nav1 page manually and then everything else works. So while I say I couldn't do this link thing, I couldn't do it with simple spreadsheet equations, whereas this I've done with actually just with spreadsheet formulas. So subtle nuance, it'll make more sense if you watch the programming guide. The bottom line is that here is your report and you can drill down right here. Now, if you want to print this, you could just highlight this and you go File, Print. And with a spreadsheet, one thing that's kind of nice, let's see, where is it? Yeah, right. You can print the current sheet. You could print the current sheet in landscape, but that's hard to read. But you can also print the selected cells. Okay, so that's one nice thing about a spreadsheet is you actually have a lot more print control over it than most people think they do. Some thought has to go into the design to get this to where it works, but you get the gist. You can also hide columns. So if I wanted to print this, but I only wanted to print those columns, I can hide them. So there's a lot of functionality here. Now, one thing that's interesting that would not be intuitive to most people is this far right-hand side. There is the data that I'm using. It's a subset of the general ledger that I actually report here and I pull. So I told you that this report pulls from the general ledger. What I didn't tell you was it doesn't pull directly from the general ledger. What I do is I create a sub-report or a view. So I've created a view of a view of a view for you database folks. I've actually created a view of a view of a view of a data table. But what we've done here is I've taken the dates and the ZID, and I've taken the dates, I'd have to look, and the ZID, and I have created a subset of the general ledger right here on this worksheet. Then what I do is I do my reporting from this subset. The reason that I did this is to get this array formula to work properly. This is programming. You don't want to hear this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. This array formula right here, to get this to work where you didn't have to do the old drag down of cells to get the equations to work, this has a limit on the sum if. See this sum if right here? It can only be one if. It can't be three ifs. So this would be, hey, give me this value, the value for this if the data is greater than or equal to that, less than or equal to that, and equal to that. That's multiple ifs. So what I had to do is combine all these ifs in a static query over here, get my subset, and limit my if here to if the record has this account number, give me the sum of those records in that table. So you just got more than you wanted to know, but that's what this general ledger subset is over here. You're going to find this on a couple different pages. If you start to notice that this thing gets really long, look at that. If I try to delete some of this, it'll probably just regenerate it. The reason it's regenerating it is because that data table over there on the right that's invisible it needs the record. So let's say I try to delete this. Control Shift arrow down, and I go delete rows. Okay, great. Oh, wait, what the heck? It just put them back. Why did it do that? It's doing it because this data over here is there. This was originally done on a separate worksheet. So there was a companion worksheet to the income statement. So the income statement was just this. It had no drill down reporting here at all. And this subset report was in a companion hidden worksheet. Once I finally figured I could put them all in one worksheet, I was like, hey, that's really cool. We may end up with problems, long term, huge files with lots and lots of data cells. We may have to make some modifications to how this thing works, or you may have to go to a more manual, drag the equation down and reconfigure, which I'll show you. We have left one of those reports in because that was one of the original reports. But anyway, for most basic individual users and small business users, I don't expect you to outgrow this system in really ever. Size shouldn't be an issue, especially if you're managing your transactions properly. And if we start to run into that, we'll figure out ways to truncate it, or you'd stop a file and start it over with less data in it. You might have your data then spread over a couple files, but I don't see that as an issue for many, many years, if it becomes an issue at all for most folks. So that's the added benefits of this income statement, or the added features and functionality found on this income statement. In this file, oops, I lost it, hang on. This isn't the only income statement. We've also got an income statement by month. We've got an income statement by month graph. We've got an income statement 2 asterisk asterisk. That's a good one to look at. 2 asterisk asterisk by month. And income statement budget versus actual. I'm not going to bore you with all this right now. This thing is loaded with stuff. What the income statement is, this auto configures. So as your chart of accounts changes, this thing will auto configure. It's pretty cool. This one, income statement by month, also very cool. And it also auto configures. So you don't have any configuration duties to do. That has an on-off button. Also, if you click over here, there is some additional functionality in reporting. This 3-month average thing, I think you need to check. It works, but it may not work exactly the way that you'd want it to. But I have to recall how I did that. And then over here is that, remember the general ledger subset again? There's that one. So it works the same way, except we get the breakdown by month. This is good stuff. And then we got the income statement by month graph. This graph is just here to remind you that you can build any graph that you want to do. So that you're not limited to this. You could build 50 graphs if you wanted to. But this gives you an idea. This is pulling from this data. This hopefully is a template to give you an idea of how you might, integrate graphs in here if you want to. Most small business people I know don't use graphs. We can look at numbers and get the gist of what we need to get the gist of and move on. So the whole graphing thing is a little bit over commercialized. Now, what are the income statements with the asterisks? See these asterisks? These were the original income statements before we made the self-configuring ones. So the original income statement looks the same. It's got an on-off button. But see this red cell here? So if you notice on this one, all the magic happens in this dark red cell. On this one, it's more like a traditional spreadsheet where the formula to get these lists are in this red cell. This works fine as long as you don't add 2 more income accounts. If you do, this list will blur into this one and you'll get an error. All you have to do is insert a row here, and or a couple, enough to where the list can play its way out and it'll work fine. Now, the other thing about this though is the equations are actually in these cells. So if you actually added categories, you also need to drag the cells down to drag the equations down. So this is more spreadsheet functionality instead of database. Same thing, you're still looking things up. So in that regard, it's a database, but you have that traditional equation in the cell thing where if you look at this one, there's no equations in any of these cells. None of them. All of this work is being done by that cell. This cell actually does 2. It goes this one and this one, and then that cell. So there's 3 equations here, whereas on this report, there's an equation in every single cell. Okay, big difference. This one works equally as well. This one, the thing I like about this one that I can't do with the other ones, I could take something out of line. I could say, hey, what if I took my meals and entertainment out? What if I just changed my budget to zero? What would it look like? I can slide this out and look, it changes my net income up here. Now notice I need to change this. This is the old way where I had income, expenses, and COGS down below. So they aligned with income, expenses, and COGS. Maybe I won't change it because it's this way. But that is different on this income statement where I went income, expenses, COGS, expenses, non-COGS. So you can kind of see the progression of changes and decisions that were made that were arbitrary. You could flip it back and do anything you wanted to. But so I liked this one because I could slide things out. That was pretty cool. And then the income statement 2 by month is here, and it's the same thing where there's an on-off button and the values are here. So the bottom line is these require a manual configuration. The ones with asterisks require a manual configuration. The first problem you'll run into is the income will blur into the expenses. You have to add rows. The second problem is as you add more, you have to highlight cells and drag them down to get the equations to work. Also, this expandable report for this income statement by month is at the beginning of the report, whereas the other one was on the far right at the end. So this is exceptional for learning how to do programming, learning how to work in spreadsheets, learning how to create reports from data tables. Also, because this was all these equations are here, we don't have the extra data tables here. Look, I don't have the drill down report, but I also don't have the extra data table because this report has multiple ifs in it. If this, if this, if this, if this, give me that. So you can get a better understanding of what a sum ifs does, ifs plural here, versus the limitation of the sum if in the array formula over in the other. Finally, there is a very complex report that's the income statement, budgets versus actual. And if you want to know what a difficult report is, this is one of them. As far as getting something that makes sense and cognitively works, here's the monthly budget, here's the actual minus budget, and then here's the actual minus budget as percentage. The problems you have is that on the income side, if you're under, is that good or bad? Well, it's actually bad. You didn't make as much income. But on the expense side, if you're under, is that good or bad? Well, it's actually good. So you have to flip the signs, and cognitively the head can get lost. So these are great, but it's really better just to get the report, but then just look at things one at a time. Do individual analysis here. Don't try to do a cumulative. It gets pretty tough and confusing, but you can play with these, and they make for a great starting point for understanding your budgeting and comparing budget versus actual. One of the biggest problems people have that want to do budgeting, they go to You Need a Budget, and they can get systems that track their income and expenses, and they can create a budget. And I think they can create all kind of graphs and fancy reports and comparisons, but that doesn't have any of the accounting functionality you need if you actually need to do double entry accounting or any higher level accounting. At least it didn't the last time I checked or heard about it. So the folks that seem to use that seem to get really confused. They're there for different reasons than I think they need to be there. Most of the stuff they do there, they can do here. They can do it probably here better, faster, and cheaper. So they can also be in a system which would allow them to grow into a more accounting-oriented system should that time ever come. Everything you need to do budgeting is in here. You just need to play with it and take your time and figure out what things mean. And the bottom line is, all a budget is it's your chart of accounts with target numbers on it, and then you need to collect your data, figure out what you did, and compare it to your budget. It's not rocket science here. Most people that I think go to the You Need a Budget route are actually having trouble with self-discipline. So the budgeting is the excuse for saying, I have a self-discipline problem, but I'm going to call it a budgeting problem. That's what I see with most of the coaches that say they're coaching for You Need a Budget. It's people that are living beyond their means, or they're living within their means, but they aren't saving what they want to save, or they aren't doing this, and they just can't simply break it down to the fact that, hey, if my options are put my money A, B, C, D, or E, I have to pick. There's a limited amount. So way off target here for our income statement reporting, but it's not really, because a budget really just is a spinoff from the income statement. You have to have the income statement first, and then you have a budget that aligns with the categories or the accounts on the income statement, and you compare the two. That's what it is. So that gives you an eyeful of income statement information for sure, and I believe this is going to wrap up the videos for the income statement for now.